We can let it ride and see how far it's going, and then if we need to change it out, we can.
Okay, sure.
All right. So let's start this and get the show on the road. Hello, everybody. This is the GVDS Community of Practice number 2. It's following up a session we had yesterday on Pretotyping. This one's going to be about Pretotyping and startups. With me is an illustrious panel of experts and amazing practitioners, all of which I can tell you by name. First off, there's Amir Arab, who's coming out of Austin. There's America Alves, who is... America, where are you coming from? What city are you from again?
Lisbon, Portugal.
Lisbon, that's right. And he's a Pretotyping and marketing and facilitation expert all around. There's Verena. Verena, you want to introduce yourself really fast?
Calling in from Frankfurt, Germany, and I've previously been on the GVDS, and that's how I got interested in Pretotyping.
Cool. And Stefania, what about yourself? What are you all about? Where are you calling from?
I am in Frankfurt, Germany too, and I've heard from Pretotyping from Verena, and I am consultant for startup and small businesses.
Oh, awesome. So this should be right up your alley then. Perfect. I'm glad you're here. And Carla, who's going to be off camera for this session, it looks like, but that's totally fine. Carla, do you want to introduce yourself briefly? Or you don't need to if you don't want to.
I do. Do you hear me now?
Okay. Yes.
No, I can turn on my camera, although I kind of had like a bad hair day too, like Lisa.
No. Bad hair days are, that's the exemption. We had it yesterday.
Wait. Let me try video. So it didn't go on, but it should.
See, even your camera doesn't want to show it because they recognizes that's a bad hair day. So it's it's that machine learning that's happening in Zoom now.
I'm really happy to be here again tonight, Robert, and I am based in Cologne, Germany. I'm American by birth. I was born and raised in California, and am I supposed to say what I do, or what is the question I'm supposed to answer? I just
you have about 10 questions. I'll just ask you repeatedly for the break so we can extend this out a bit. But I think that the introduction was perfect.
Right? Isn't that enough?
Perfectly
good.
fine.
Okay, good. Let's go.
Okay. So a bit of logistics. If you are in the chat and you're not on the panelist side, but you're kind of viewing this as an observer, as a participant, go ahead and put in where you're calling in from. It looks like Abzul is from Johannesburg, South Africa, which I imagine is pretty late there. So I will try to be as entertaining as all humanly possible for y'all. And there's Andy Davis at Fort Worth, Texas. There's Laxman over in India, which I think now it's about 11 o'clock around that time. It's going to be close to about 11 in India. Hope it's not 1. Then I have to be really entertaining. 23. It's okay. Yes, it's 11:30. Got it. Luke's out in Wilmington, North Carolina. That's a lovely place. And Yashir's over in Berlin. Very nice. All right. I think we got the tab on everyone. So I'll give a brief overview of what you are going to be experiencing today. We're going to have 2 parts to this generally. First part is an introduction to Pretotyping if you're not used to it or know it, and also how in Alberto Savoya's book, he kind of goes into different startups that have used Pretotyping in the past, some examples of those. And the second half, Amir's here to kind of showcase his idea around nightclubs and nightlife in Austin. And I had a conversation with him offline about that. We, as a group of panelists, are going to be walking through kind of a hybrid of the Pretotyping process to kind of flesh out this idea and potentially make it into a Pretotype. So for some of you that participated, like America, like you participated yesterday, a lot of what you're going to see in the activities are going to be very similar. And I will share my screen and share the link for everyone to get into the mural while I do the introduction. So give me 1 second and I will get that together. And so if you're looking at the chat on the panelist side, I'll have included the link to join. And for those of you watching at home, I'm going to start sharing my screen and get to the tab that we will be going over. So hopefully everyone on the call is seeing something that says Community of Practice, Pretotyping, and Startups. And if you don't, then do let me know, because there are probably some tabs that would be totally uninteresting for you and I wouldn't want to bore you. Okay. Right. So let's get straight into this. This is going to be about Pretotyping and startups. The first part of this is going to go over prototyping and its origins. If you're unfamiliar with it or the concept, this is something that basically this methodology uses a set of tools and techniques that's basically meant to test desirability in the market of your ideas, your products, and your services. The goal is to make sure that you are building what Alberto Savoia calls the right it before you build it right. So it's even before design sprints, it's before lean startup, it's really using the scientific method to figure out if your idea has any merit with the market, whatever market you're going after. Now, originally this was worked out by Alberto and a number of people within Stanford on testing the market. It was Alberto's original idea, but one of the things that sometimes slips through the cracks is that he worked with a lot of different people in terms of creating the manifesto, testing it out, trying it out with different people. It originally was in PDF format around 2012, and he had it for free. He just gave away the concept for free online, and it really gained in popularity. People were doing language translation for it, and it really caught on with a lot of developers and others who wanted to test out their ideas in a way that was different from what was currently there. And like I mentioned before, he worked with people such as Tina Seelig and Richard Cox Braden. Also, Leslie Berry was somebody else that I didn't mention here. There's someone that he's collaborated with. And through those years of kind of going through the motions, trying things out, seeing what worked, what didn't work with different situations and different clients, he basically wrote something called The Right It. That's kind of where it is today. The book is going to be close to 2 years old, but it's relatively new. You can get it on Amazon and other places, but essentially the book goes through not only what I'm presenting on prototyping, but goes through some case studies, his history of how he developed it, how to actually approach prototyping, strategic ways of kind of applying it. I also did an interview with him to kind of suss out some particulars about the approach, but that's essentially what we're covering today, is this notion that there's a series of steps you can take that will walk you through being able to test out your ideas. And I won't get into the granularity of things because I didn't want this to be an informational kind of presentation. I want it to be more experiential, but this is kind of an overview of what's happening with the entire prototyping community right now, which is being kind of stood up by Leslie Berry and Alberto through Slack. There's a link here. And then yesterday when we did a prototyping session, I included a lot of links that I'll send these out later on for people. If you're on the panelist side, you have access to these right now. So if there's anything here that you haven't seen about prototyping that you're interested in, I know Americo has put in a couple of links down here about prototyping at work. There's a few that involve videos about the math of 10, which we'll get into later on. But most of these links will be available offline once I do a summary of what's going on. But at any time, if you're a panelist and you know of a link that's not here that you'd like to let people know about, go ahead and put that there. I can get rid of Miro Masters because that was yesterday's. And same with this one, since we're going to be talking about startups. But yeah, that's for reference. So does anyone on the panel have any questions about prototyping? I know it's very, very high level. It doesn't get into the steps at all, but is there anything I missed or anything that you wanted to hear more about? No?
No.
All right. Okay, so let's go into the topic of prototyping and startups. What I'm going to be showing you are some examples that come directly from the Right It that Alberto kind of outlines. Some of these, he's taken the prototyping process and kind of projected it on to particular products and services, but it's just to illustrate some variations on prototyping that have already happened in the past. The first one is the Palm Pilot, which originally existed as a block of wood that this person named Jeff Hawkins would carry around with him and pretend that it was a working device. He would take it to dinner, he would take it out to work, and he would basically use it as it was a real thing. So he was kind of doing a Pinocchio kind of thing, like it wasn't real, but he was pretending it was. And he wanted to simulate the experience of the pilot to see if it was worth building, like putting time and effort into. And essentially that's at the core of prototyping is that this is a physical example of using something that could be a product, but you want to really understand what you like about it, not like about it, so you can, have your own skin in the game. And this is on display here where back in 1995, this is the exact thing that he used to basically put different screens on. He would basically render those out. It looks like back in 1995, probably on a Mac, he was using something where he had to paint most of the stuff. But yeah, This is an example of how to prototype with a physical object to get an understanding of what you could do or where it could go. And the rest of the history of the Palm Pilot, if you look it up, is pretty much all there. Google Glass was another one where they kind of did something a little bit different with theirs. They wanted to find evangelists that would be willing to pay $1,500 to receive an Explorer toolkit to be one of the first to kind of see what this is all about. Now, they showed it through YouTube first to kind of promote it, since Google owns YouTube, but to make sure that people were invested in what it was about and not just basically make it consumer driven right away. They had this high bar of people that if you really wanted to give feedback and be part of the beta, you had to pay for it rather than a sign up. So there were a lot of people that did it, sat through the training, returned home, tried different ways of doing it. It got some press in terms of how it didn't catch on and how people were kind of making fun of it. But what it did find was a market with medical and with builders, because it was an extension of the work that they had already done or were doing. So for people that were building airplanes, they could use this for schematics to make sure that they understood where certain things went and where parts were. For medical, they could look up referential information and be able to have that on screen so they can look at it while they were doing the work. So it had a niche market, but at the time, Google Glass and some of the founders had talked about it. They didn't really know where it was properly applied. They just used this as a way of being able to put it out there to see who was interested. And then over time, they figured out who their market was. Just an example of kind of reversing that dynamic. Airbnb was interesting because they came up with the idea of renting their apartment through 3 air mattresses. And I didn't know this before I started doing research on it, that the name Airbnb calls for like air as an air mattress, and B&B was bed and breakfast, because they offered a home cooked breakfast in their deal for basically renting out their apartment. And they had a longer domain at the time, but essentially they had somebody paying for their particular apartment, for each paying $80. And then that quickly kind of snowballed from there, where they basically put a framework around it, found other people in the California area that were willing to do this, and it just kept on kind of going from there.
Somebody's profile picture is hi.
That's interesting.
It just says hi.
Are you going down to lunch now? Okay.
All it says is hi.
That's it. Okay. Have a good lunch, okay?
Okay.
Hey, make sure to take your carrot container down, if you could, please. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. And then the last one I have is Virgin Airlines. This is funny because when I read the book, I must have glossed over this, but I did not know that because Richard Branson had missed his flight, he actually borrowed a blackboard and just wrote on it saying that, okay, he's just basically going to take a whole bunch of people on a chartered plane to basically get where he needs to go. Like he's going to basically bring everybody that had got bumped from the flight onto this particular flight to go in a certain direction. So once he discovered that it had some traction, he started looking for planes to buy from other airlines, and just basically used ones. And he found one that he could prototype with on a larger scale, give people like much cheaper flights, then the quality of service was higher. And then it just took off from there. So each of these are basically an example of an actual startup that had some sort of skin in the game or some level of engagement where they needed to test the market first. A couple of these one of these was more personal and experiential, but the other 2 were kind of testing the market to see if people would actually purchase their ideas and where it could go. There are a number of examples I didn't include here that are less renowned, but I didn't want to necessarily just kind of keep on going with this. The whole point of this presentation on prototyping and startups is that you can go in many different directions with your prototypes. You can ask for money, you can ask for email addresses, you can ask for phone numbers, you can even ask for people's time in a webinar or a presentation. But whatever variation you choose with figuring out how desirable your ideas are, you want to have some sort of what Alberto calls skin in the game by this audience. You want to know that they're making an investment of something of theirs to tell you that they're really interested in what you're doing. Not likes, not follows, not anything social, some sort of commitment. And that's probably what differentiates this particular process from others, in that you're really looking for some sort of traction in terms of commerce or in terms of time or in terms of some intention of commitment. when it comes to kind of doing this. And that's what's going to be kind of brought into this next exercise I'm going to do with the mirror. But before I do, does anyone on the panel have any examples that they know of where startups that they've seen or read about have used something similar for prototyping, where they tested the market before they went full throttle on something? And you don't have to have an answer. This is just an inquiry to see if anyone on the panel is aware of something.
There's the famous story of Dropbox, right? Where before they did anything, before programming anything, they just made a video explaining their idea, and that's it.
Okay. And then from there, they just basically waited for people to sign up?
From there, they went, made people sign up, and then they went for investors and got the investment money to start building their first prototype, But they started with a video explaining the idea first.
And there's a lot of correlation with this in growth hacking, like basically the whole concept of growth design, where you're really looking at the quantitative and the analytics of how people engage and react, and what they do in terms of their behavior versus what they say. So prototyping and growth hacking or growth design have a lot of similarities in that they kind of swim in the same stream, although prototyping arguably is the thing that manifests the original start. I'm just thinking of how Twitter kind of got going, and how they made an emphasis on kind of the activity and what was happening, what people were responding to. Most of the early stage social networks kind of went down that route, and they were very careful around their language and how they proposed adding people into their networks, and what seemed to make sense, and what seemed to kind of find traction. But yeah, that's worth noting, is that the two of them are pretty similar.
Yeah, Twitch has a similar concept as well, where they started as Justin TV, where 3 people had a cam in their house, and you can stream their cam from wherever you want in the world. You just stream whatever they're doing, and you watch them. And that was the whole concept behind Twitch. And then slowly they started evolving from there.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else on the panelist side have any other examples they'd like to bring up?
There is also a famous prototype made by Tesla, who did a one night stand prototype, having a portable auto showroom, and they were requesting like $5,000 as a sign up for having the car. I'm not sure if it fits in this context, because Tesla is more it's a bit different from it's more structured, and it's not so let's see where this goes. But that initiative is also a very good prototype I have in my mind, because the starting point was really high for the product, because it was the first time that a Tesla car was made available, electrical car, and it was a bold move.
I actually think Alberto included that as an example in his book.
I was just going to say the Tesla example. Before that was any kind of development, Elon Musk made a presentation with a whole bunch of hypotheses. Would you buy this car if it could do this, this, and this, and it would cost this amount of money? And maybe someone else knows, but the actual numbers, just how many people said they would, and gave him their I guess email address in order to get more information. But it was just total assumptions, and not even any type of testing at this point, but just putting it out there to see who would respond, and he got very positive reactions.
Yeah. Do you remember?
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Amir. Go for it.
No, I was going to start a different example. I can wait until you ask Carl a question.
Go for it. That's fine.
Oh. So there are big companies nowadays that go on Kickstarter and Indiegogo before they
Yeah.
develop a new concept or some new device that might be risky and cost them a lot of money. For example, last year, the headphones company, GBL, the audio company, GBL, started an Indiegogo campaign about a new pair of headphones that charge with solar power. But they didn't want to create it and release it to the market because they thought it was risky. So they put the whole campaign on Indiegogo, and it was funded. So it kind of had, they kind of had asked people to put their skin in the game this way. So it was, I think it was $80 per headphones.
Was the idea that they were going to get feedback as part of the purchase, that they were, or was it just buy the headphones and then you were good?
I think they had created a prototype, but they weren't sure that people would be interested in having headphones that were solar powered, or they charge with the solar power. So I'm not sure what the idea was behind it, but they went on Indiegogo and saw if people were interested in something like that.
Okay.
And the release was a year after, so maybe they didn't even have a prototype; they just had the idea.
One of the things I got from Leslie Berry of Exponentially, when I had talked to him about prototyping before, is that percentage still holds that 80 to 90% of your ideas don't work in the market. They just don't. They tend to fall flat. But the ones that do, they need a certain runway for them to gain a certain level of relevance and momentum. It's kind of like that curve that you see that's flat for a long time, and then all of a sudden it spikes up really fast. Where he said that the ones that are multi-million-dollar or billion-dollar revenue generations take at least anywhere from 3 to 4 years to really happen, and they need champions behind them. They need somebody to basically evangelize for it so that it has a voice and it just doesn't exist on their own. So it's an interesting dynamic in that what prototypes and successful prototypes are really saying is that, like in nature, this plant is starting to grow. The environment seems to be right. It seems to react to what is being fed. Now you have to nurture it in order to be able to see what it's going to grow into. And if you can break it off, if it produces fruit, you just don't know. So that was an interesting kind of correlation with it. Any other comments or questions? And again, if you're not on the panelist side, but you're watching this, you can also put in your 2 bits if you'd like to in chat or in Q&A, and we can bring those up as part of the conversation.
I would like to ask to add something about Kickstarters, because I've looked at a video. I've watched a video that you recommended, Robert, from Savoya, about Kickstarters, and he said we had to be careful with Kickstarters because it's like or Indiegogo, because there are a lot of early adapters in those platforms, and that's not the market.
Yeah. Okay.
Like only freaks, just as we are, which loves new technologies and trying new things, but it's actually not the real market.
It's not the market that you're meant to try to cater to with your particular idea. Yeah. That you're saying that the ecosystem on like Kickstarter they all thrive on new and upcoming things like Product Hunt or something else. Yeah. That you're really not getting as objective as you'd like. Yeah, that's a good point, because I remember that video on his YouTube about that addressed it as well. So I'm glad you brought it up, Stefania.
I kind of disagree there. It's a good way to gauge the interest before you release something, and it's a good way to get funded for that idea.
It's true.
Yes, to get funded, it's true. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be where they're it's the proof of concept is maybe that's a different stage. Maybe the verification of the desirability is done through just objectivity with not a lot of like contextual influence. You could use your friends and family to make sure that it's understood, like the messaging and the copy and the content is clarity. But then when it gets to a certain level, then you could go into that environment and say, look, this is now at level 3 or level 4, so to speak. It's now where there's 50 or 60 signups every month. So this has got some desirability. Now let's see what people who live and breathe this stuff think of it. Especially if you want to fund like a feature that would actually be real development, like if you want to put it there.
Yeah, so someone on the panel, Daniela, said, because it takes more time to get sense of what the market idea is, prototypes are fast and cheap, but Kickstarter takes a long time. But also just releasing, a landing page, that's a prototype. A landing page is a prototype, but also takes a long time. So that's not, that's where I disagree with Savoya. I think Kickstarter is a good way to gauge market interest.
Yeah. And the good thing about Savoy is that he may be very astute about certain things related to his philosophy and the way he thinks about things, but he's open to that kind of conversation. So the same thing with me as we had a conversation about the X and the XYZ that we'll get to a little bit later. It's like, are you just picking an arbitrary number out of the air? Are you trying to, there's a lot of talk about that until the 10 number came into play. So he's pretty open to kind of talking about that stuff, and he can usually see where there's some examples that kind of buck the notion that Kickstarter is just like a wasteland of, people that are just trying to find their idea and get some money. So.
And a lot of people who go on Kickstarter now do a first round. And if that first round is a success, and then there are more people who are interested, they do a second round and even a third round. And they keep doing this over and over again. There are many products on Kickstarter that do multiple rounds of funding because more people start hearing about it. They start seeing it on other people or other people using the product. And they're like, oh, where'd you get that? From Kickstarter. And they go on Kickstarter and there are second and third rounds of funding.
So they're kind of using it as marketing, it sounds like. Yeah. They're using it to market their product. Okay. Yeah.
Exactly. So when you have an idea and you go on Kickstarter, there are a lot of services that go along with Kickstarter to spread the idea all over the world to people who are interested.
Yeah, but still can be biased because it's not the real market there. However, I see no problem in using it as a final step of a sequence of experiments aiming to get the funds to make it happen.
But it's not. You're saying it's not the main market, which is true. But let's go back to Airbnb example, right? Their market was the whole world, but when they started small with just either San Francisco or New York, knowing that their whole market is going to be the whole world. You can do the same thing on Kickstarter. Try with a small group of people, get the funding, and then you can start expanding and growing.
Yeah,
that's my opinion.
Yeah, but they started, I think, in Craigslist.
Yeah, they also started and they were surprised by the huge need that they basically stumbled onto. They didn't realize that there was even a market for what they were offering when they put those mattresses in their apartment. It was a trade fair time. Nobody could get a hotel room, and then they discovered this through Craigslist that it would work. It was kind of like it was a long shot, and then they just continue to build on that and try different things out. But I think originally, I don't even know if I would call that a pretotype or a prototype, because from what I've read, they really stumbled onto that.
So Daniela and Andy and others, if you'd like to join us on the panelist side for the second part, you're more than welcome to do so. What we're going to be doing is only doing an interview style with Amir about what's coming up in the startup prototype walkthrough. Just go ahead and let me know in chat, and then while we're kind of going through these steps, I'll basically like bring you over, and then you can be part of the conversation rather than typing if you want to. Otherwise, you're totally fine by staying on the other side and just chatting. That works as well. Okay, so this next part here, let me get there. Got the wrong thing. So what we're going to be doing is interviewing a practitioner. I want to keep your name a secret, Amir, because you're world famous, of course, for the idea of a startup in the city of Austin. And we're going to be going through the motions of all of these different questions with Amir. So this is going to be, Amir, I'm going to be doing this in a bit of interview style. And on the panelist side of things, you're more than welcome to kind of just put sticky notes up here if you have questions that you want to ask Amir as we go through this, so you don't have to wait until I prompt you. An easy way of doing it is just in the mural interface is just go over to the text icon that's at the second icon from the top over on the left-hand side, and just drag a sticky note in somewhere towards the bottom of the step and just put in your 2 cents if you'd like to. Or if you feel more comfortable doing it in Zoom, you can do it there, and I'll just basically pick it up when we have a logical break in our conversation. So let me see, I'll bring over Andy really fast from over the participant side. Let me see here. DD. Okay. So Andy Davis, the eternal best of the best from GVDS, is now here. Oh, Carla, you're over. Okay, you're already over.
Okay, I guess I'm already over. So just
okay.
making
On a
sure.
different level. Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. So let me go over the idea, Amir, and I think I verified this with you, but you can give me any updates or change anything if it doesn't make any sense. So the idea is that you'd like to create a platform that shares video stories about Austin's nightclub and bar scene. Writing on the assumption that written interviews are kind of less emphasized when it comes to understanding what you could go to at a given time during the nightclub and bar scene on a set Friday or Saturday night. The app tool itself would allow users to review a place at night, like at the 6th Street in downtown Austin or some other places, and to let them know and others what's going on in real time. Now, this would sit on top of Instagram as an aggregator of related stories about Austin nightlife. So it wouldn't be its own, it wouldn't have its own vehicle. It would basically be a wrapper that would kind of take in and feed Instagram with specific stories that relate to Austin, Texas. And the idea is that it would be curated in one particular consumption feed that people can basically like look into and either talk about or to put pictures and share, but something of a social aspect of the nightclub scene that people could use. Amir, does that sound around right? Is there anything that I should update from this?
So I can give a bit of background where I get the idea from, right? If you want.
Please.
Yeah, so last year after I moved to Austin, we had this festival called Austin City Limits. It's a huge festival, and a lot of people come from around the US to visit Austin for it. So there were thousands and thousands of people coming for this festival, and there was Guns N' Roses, so it was a great festival. But so it was right next, and so it was right next to Barton Springs pool, which is a big pool that people go to swim, and it's a beautiful area to swim. But I thought since it's next to the festival ground, it's going to be packed. So what I did is go on Instagram and see if people have tagged stories from Barton Springs pool to see and tag themselves there to see what the atmosphere was like. So I went there, I went on Instagram, I looked at tagged location Barton Springs, and so video stories from there, and it looked very empty, and people were posting from there and it was empty. So that's how I knew that I can go there, and I did, and I went with my wife and we had a great day. So we started using the same idea with Instagrams, because people, when they go out, they post stories to their friends and they tag the location, they tag the bar, they tag the place in their story. So you can anyone can access them on Instagram. So before going to a place, I would go to that place and click on the stories and see the atmosphere, see the music, see how crowded it is. And based on that, make my decision before I go to the place. That's where the idea came from.
Okay. Any panelists have any questions for Amir about the idea? Anything you'd like to inquire or kind of expand upon what he said so far?
Amir, how are your reviews or posts? How are they going to be different than what you can read in Yelp?
Right. So with Yelp, Yelp works very well for restaurants because restaurants have the same menu, have the same atmosphere every day. They even play the same music every day sometimes. But with nightclubs and bars, every night is different. So when you go on Yelp and see that, okay, this bar has 4 stars, you read about it, you don't really get a very good idea on what's happening in real time. You could read that, oh, they had this DJ and he was famous, and you would go and they would have a different DJ. You wouldn't know because that review was written months ago. That's the difference.
Okay.
So with video stories that were posted in real time, you can see what's happening right now inside the place. You can hear it and see it and understand and make an informed decision before you go there. So you're not surprised when you get there.
Okay, so it's video stories and it's about this actuality. So this real-time kind of experience. Okay.
Exactly,
All
exactly.
Right. Good, thanks.
I'll be right back. Keep going, keep talking. I'll be right back.
Is it a social media? So I have friends on your app, or how does it work?
Yeah, well, I haven't really got to that, but the idea is to become a social network in a way. Yeah, so it's a social network revolved around going out, clubbing, and going to bars. And sometimes people, like, I use Instagram, for example, to see if a bar that I want to go to, if it's crowded. So I go to the Instagram page and I see the stories that were posted there and see if it's crowded, then I don't go. I pick another bar that has video stories that show that it's empty, so I can go and have a good time with my friends alone in the bar, for example. So it can be used for the opposite.
Yeah.
Just to see, just to get an idea of what the vibe is like.
Yeah.
Amir, is this something that there might be opportunities for actual bars to opt in and provide live feeds or their own promotion, or is it purely just sort of community based?
Absolutely, it can be the stories, as long as they are real time. It doesn't matter who posts those stories. It could be the bar, it could be someone else. The idea also is to monetize it through bars who want to post promotions.
Yep.
Any competitors, Amir?
At the moment, no.
No?
Except for Yelp, but Yelp is, I would say, is a different platform and a different way of reviewing. So because it's written review, it's different, I would say. But the only competitor would be Yelp so far.
Have you thought about how you're going to keep a certain quality standard of the video stories? I mean,
not really, no. I haven't gotten that far yet, no.
Okay, yeah.
We are working on the app, but we haven't really tested with users in that sense yet, no.
Okay. Just a second. I'm going to be sharing the Miro link with someone, and I will go to the next section.
Amir, that last bit, it says sit on top of Instagram. So is this integrated into my Instagram experience, or is that referring to just leveraging their APIs or their platform to drive a separate
That's
experience?
Exactly right. We were thinking in the beginning maybe people would be reluctant to download the app, or immediately use the app. And also we didn't want to build an expensive app before, so maybe it would be something cheap that we build over Instagram. And it will also take stories that were already posted from Instagram. Yeah.
Okay.
Just for the prototype in the beginning, just to, validate the idea.
Okay, so based on the conversation so far, I'm moving my screen over to number 2. This.
Can you set a timer for 5 minutes?
I will. I wanted to know if anyone on the panelist side, basically, after what Amir's been talking about and describing, Alden, you have to go in the meeting room, bud. You can't stay here. is there anything in the market right now that sounds similar to what he's talking about? Now, this is an optional area. This is only if after discussing it in the past 5-10 minutes, if something does come to mind. I put a couple of here just for examples where you can copy and paste like actual sites. There's a actual Quora thread that talks about 2 services back in 2005 that sounds similar to what you're doing, Amir. So there's how different people have had different takes to it. There's another existing kind of service called Roo, and I put Yelp in here just because it was referenced originally in the idea. But what I'd like to know is, and if nobody has any one thing that kind of matches what Amir is talking about, then that's perfectly fine. But I'll just take about a minute or so to say, okay, is there anything off the top of your head that you know reminds you of what Amir's speaking of?
I
If not,
don't know any solutions that falls in his idea. I'm just aware of Zomato-like solutions, but nothing that propose what is going on live in those nightclubs.
now there is one app that I know of that I've used that it doesn't involve nightclubs, but it is an app that tracks where people are, how busy something is at a very high level, and that's actually Disney's native app for Disneyland. That has like an over topographical map, and it shows you the wait times for each of the lines. But it also, I think their newest update gives you the wait times for certain restaurants, because there's restaurants all throughout the entire thing. There may be some visual metaphors that, Amir, that you could potentially like key into or look at. But that's something where if I wanted to get an idea of how long I would need to wait to ride a ride, it usually has that based on, the people that are standing outside. How that you could correlate that to nightclubs would be different.
Oh, no, absolutely. That's something that I looked at and got inspiration from as well, because a lot of nightclubs, especially popular nightclubs, have queues outside. So if you are able to see how long will it take you to be inside, that's important information. Because, for example, if you're going to wait outside for an hour, you might decide, okay, I'm not going to go to this place. I'm going to go to a different place instead.
Mm-hmm. Also at Disney, they use FastPass, which would be the equivalent of a VIP list. How long do you have to wait to actually get into a VIP room if the ones that are available? Something similar to that. So yeah, that was where I kind of saw some correlation. Let's see, just checking the chat real fast. Foursquare, Daniela says that may have some similar interests or similar features.
Yeah, so Foursquare does not show you real-time videos or stories.
Okay.
It's also
Daniela,
just written reviews.
Daniela, were you thinking about some metaphor or something about that app or service that you were thinking in terms of particular features? And I'll wait for her to kind of like text back. But okay, so we kind of know that there's some ideas in the market, but maybe not direct correlations. She says, yes, actually, maybe the business model, she said. Okay. If we go into who would be interested in this, so this is going to be Amir, this is kind of, I can script this. So if you go on the top of your head, if you tell me which audience type you think this is be most interested in this type of tool, who would that be?
Millennials who use TikTok, who use Instagram, who use all type of story format every day, basically. From observing millennials, they don't even type on their messaging apps. They send each other, for example, videos or audio messages. The writing and the reading is slowly disappearing from the life of millennials.
Okay. Any other audiences you were thinking about?
Yes, people who want to avoid the crowd, older people usually, over 40, like me. I use the service, so I would avoid crowds and avoid crowded places.
And for what it's worth, Amir, you don't look a day over 30. Is there anyone you know that fits either of those two categories?
Is that a question for me?
Yes.
Millennial. Yeah, I know millennials and I know older people. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it has. It's been 5 minutes. So you don't have to name names, but you said so you know how many, if you could give a number like around 2 to 5 millennials, can you think of? That you could
More
go
even,
to
yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
5
absolutely.
plus.
5 plus.
That would be willing to talk. All right, how am I not spelling it right? That would be talk about it. And what about older people over 40 who would want to avoid crowds and crowded places?
I definitely know hundreds of those.
Hundreds
Let's say
of
5
old
plus.
people that will give you. You know, I know some places that actually have hundreds of old people. So, okay, so that's kind of Amir's take on it. What I'd like to do is invite the panelists to kind of jump in and do this. So if you have some ideas around the audiences for this type of app, there's a whole bunch of boxes here that say audience. Go ahead and put in who you think would be interested in this kind of app that we may not have covered with these two. And I'll go ahead and put in a couple of cards down here. So if you know somebody in your network that would be interested in this, that based on the answers that you give on the left, and I'll separate these out a bit, go ahead and put those on the right. So what the reason is that with Pretotypes, you can always figure out where these particular audiences are hanging out to get their attention. But it's another thing where if you wanted to clarify the intent and the understanding of what you're creating, the green boxes on the right are invaluable in getting that kind of perspective from people that you have closer, you have the distance to data is closer, is shorter than it would be if you were just basically trying to get somebody's opinion that doesn't know you. So go ahead and I'll take about just maybe a minute or two. I'll put 2 minutes up here. Go ahead and think of different audiences that maybe that from your perspective would care to this tool. And if you run out of boxes, we'll create new ones. And again, you can ask him your questions as you're kind of thinking about these audiences. If you want to clarify his intent, or not intent, but his understanding of the audiences that may use it.
Robert?
Yes.
I can't write in the stickies.
Have you tried refreshing your browser, just kind of refreshing it and seeing if it comes back for you to edit? Because I find that Mural sometimes has that fudginess to it, where all of a sudden some particular functionality of it just stops working.
Okay.
That happens with voting sometimes too.
Also,
Amir.
on the other, sorry, go ahead, Andy.
Oh, thanks. So do you see this as exclusive to nightclubs, or could it be any area of interest?
See, in my original story, I said, for example, I thought this swimming pool would be very crowded because it was next to a festival. So I guess it could be anywhere as long as you can tag a location.
Yeah.
On the other end, the users, maybe also bar owners, club owners, places, venue promoters and party promoters could be also.
And Robert, what I was immediately thinking of is like a place like the State Fair of Texas, right? It's a huge place, but there may be places of interest. Like people are like, well, I want to go see this, but I don't want to walk all the way over there to find that it's no good.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, also restaurants these days have limited capacity in a lot of states. So if before you want to go to a restaurant, you want to check if there's a huge line outside, maybe.
Yeah.
You want to avoid crowd because you don't want to get COVID, also possible.
And Amir, I don't know if you saw on I don't know if this was a similar product, but I did post something out there for a thing called Night Set, which was kind of interesting just at first look, but I don't know if it's a direct line competitor.
Oh yeah, the Night Set app right there. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's interesting.
I know.
So Amir, when you're looking over these different types of audiences that the panelists have put up, what are some of your thoughts? Are there any of them that stick out for you?
Can you clarify what you mean by stick out? Like the people I want to go after?
Yeah, or people that you think are appropriate for this app. So you've already indicated that you're thinking millennials who use TikTok and Instagram every day, and older people over 40 that want to avoid crowds in crowded places. Are there particular cards in here where you go like, oh yeah, I could probably add that into the mix out of the ones that are listed here?
Yeah, all of those for sure. Yeah.
If you had to pick just one or two of them, which one would you choose? You're on an audience diet. You can only add 2 more to your buffet.
Right. Tourists. That's a good one.
Okay.
Tourists come into a new town. They don't know which bars or clubs are good. So before they go to a place to hang out, check out the music from the comfort of their hotel. And people checking out how crowded a shop or a place of service is. So waiting times.
Okay. And Danielle also posed the question, are we taking into account the people in the audience that are going to pay for this? Because I don't see business owners here. Well, we did add it later on with the bar owners, but I also wonder if business owners would really want an app that can impact their visitors if it's not an exclusive place for just a few people. Depends. It could be used as a promotional vehicle in a way, especially if you want to. Kind of like how Zagat for so many years it said, like, post your review here, so maybe it'll get featured.
This way, club owners will be able, if let's say their club is empty, they can create a promotion, create an ad, and target some people who are going out in the app.
Okay. All right. So we move to the next one. It's like, now these, when I say questions, I mean open-ended questions that are unresolved in your mind, Amir. So beyond some of the obvious ones, like, would people use this app, which is, important, but what are some dimensions of this particular idea that you have that you'd like to eventually have answered through this prototyping effort? And panelists also, you can put these in anytime you'd like. I'm just interviewing Amir, but if you have questions that you have about this that you'd like to kind of put into the mix, then go ahead and double click on any of those digital cards that are shown there and go ahead and put your question. Oh, Amir, you're cut out. You have no audio.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I was muted. My question is, or my risk is, how would I prevent a big company like Yelp from creating something similar really fast? Because they have the platform. How do I create something much better than what they are able to create, right?
So would the question be, how do I prevent a big company to replicate what I'm doing here?
Or how do I create a service that's better than what they are able to provide?
What's the name of the company again?
Yelp, for example, or Google Maps, because on Google Maps there are written reviews. What if they add stories as well? Twitter added stories recently, right?
How can you differentiate yourself?
Yeah, how do I provide a better service so people, even if Google or Yelp added the same feature, I still don't end my business.
Theo also puts a question in here, and then I'll put it. It's like, and maybe it's something you can't control, but how do I prevent someone or some company to copy what I do? If you're a feature, then they could basically roll out their own feature that has something similar if there's traction, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Carla, what do you mean by USP?
I mean, how can you capture the needs of your of the people, of your users, in such a way that they continue to use it, that they have, not only is it something that they want to use, but that it's something that is kind of sustainable, is kind of a unique selling point, that it spreads like a word of mouth. Have you seen this? Try it. And that this kind of unique selling proposition is something that you can continue over a longer period of time until you get established. That's what I'm thinking.
Right. So the unique selling point proposition would be having it kind of a social network where you can follow influencers in that scene, or you follow your friends and see what your friends are up to, or if your friends are going out, you can see what are they up to, where are they going, what places do they recommend. So it's a social network revolving around the act of nightlife, basically.
Okay, so
Other
that's
questions that were,
yeah.
oh, go ahead. Sorry, Carla, go for it.
So I just, that's where you want to go with this. That's like the networking is where you kind of like your vision, where you want to get there.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
So some of the other questions that are posed here, would the waiting time feature function independently of the video part? For example, for shops with less cool looking places. Another question is, would it be possible? Oh, go ahead. You can answer it if you'd like.
Yeah. See, I have no idea. We haven't gotten there yet.
Okay. Would it be possible to also check in virtually instead of standing in line?
Would it be possible to where? Sorry.
To check in virtually instead of standing in line physically.
How would you post a video if you're not there?
Yeah.
I was like expanding on the questions around the waiting time feature. So I see like there's the video part, and that's like sort of super important for this nightlife part of things. But since you also picked the question about like how crowded are shops, etc., which is not necessarily something where you want to see a video, but it's like a different kind of feature, like how crowded is it? Do I have to stand in line? How long do I wait for? So this was a question about that. If there is such a feature independent of video. Yeah.
There is no feature yet. The way I was testing it with my friend is I would go stand in line and I would carry my phone, video how long the line is. And in the video, I would say, I think I'm going to be waiting here for about half an hour before I can make it in. And that 15-second video is enough for people to see the time, what time this video was posted, and they'll be able to inform, oh, if he's going to wait half an hour, well, that's not bad. And there are that many people in front of him as well, you know?
Be kind of cool if you could actually pay for your VIP spot and then you check in when you're there. And it's kind of like how you do with a dentist office here in the States or anything else. You usually have to call the office and let them know that you're outside and they'll let you in. So maybe the same kind of dynamic can happen for a club where you're doing the exact same thing. And then that can be an easy way to track from an API and sending that out. It's like, how full is by proxy, if the VIP lounge is full, then you can correlate a certain amount of activity in the regular area.
So that's the thing. There are a lot of cool ideas once we find product market fit.
Yeah.
And I think you could also take that VIP thing even further, and perhaps somebody's sitting in a VIP spot, but someone else is really interested in having it. And there's some sort of exchange that happens, an incentive to make it happen.
Yeah, people who work in the airlines do this all the time. They basically, there's a market for vacation times, and when people get their time off, so that they'll actually do swaps for different times that are there. But yeah, it could be something where if someone, I wouldn't say it's a bartering system, but it'd be something similar. So yeah. How do I bring people to post if they are looking for an uncrowded place?
How do people what? Sorry?
How do I bring people to post if they are looking for an uncrowded place?
What can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, that's from me. I'm confused because if I'm looking for some place where there's no crowd, I won't like show, come on, you come on in because nobody is here. I don't get the point. Why should I do this?
Why do you want to go to a place where there's no one?
There's no one, and I'm happy for this because there's no one, and I won't make a video of me staying alone because I will be afraid that the other ones are coming to the place. You know what I mean? Like you said, you wanted a place which is cozy with nobody.
Yeah, the old ones are coming. You got to get the hell out of there as soon as you can.
I mean, That's also something that should be tested, I guess. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to tackle that.
For me,
And
it's
Amir,
a big challenge. Yes.
It is a big challenge, sure.
You don't have to have answers to the questions, Amir. These are meant to be like open-ended, where
Exactly.
like this is what people are kind of thinking about when they see this, such as how can you tie the benefits to users' emotions, or how can this be used beyond the moments of entertainment search, and kind of elaborating on that. And Tio puts in distancing versus undistancing features, which is it's pretty similar, because just because of vaccines coming next year doesn't mean that people aren't going to be paranoid about this in terms of like, well, are you vaccinated? Is this a place? They'll still do that. Also, can you build watch criteria so that when the condition is met, I get notified of the nearest options? So it's similar to that AI machine learning thing where it learns from the data and makes like curated suggestions, perhaps.
I mean, these are all good questions that I have no answer to.
And that's the beauty of it, the entire thing. So that works. So I don't think we'll get through all of this in terms of like all these activities, but most of these, like I did today, were optional. So we'll do the same here. We're going to get a bit into prototyping now. We're going to kind of get into the space a bit. So we're going to try our hand at a market engagement hypothesis. And it's basically a short sentence that basically encapsulates the idea and how you expect the market to engage with it. So Amir, after kind of walking through this and getting some perspective and discussion on what's out there, the way to create a market engagement hypothesis is pretty simple. It's like, if this particular thing happens, then this particular thing happens, is the way to think about it. So if this app exists and in this situation for this context, then people are going to do these actions. This is what we want them to do. They'll either pay for something, they'll engage in it. And there's examples of Netflix, Cheapo Sushi, and Webvan, all from the book, The Write It. But what I like to do is I can act as your scribe and basically write down your first pass at what this could be in terms of how you would formulate it. And as always with the panelists, if you'd like to take any one of these boxes outside of the example one, and I'll just basically highlight it in a different color so you know that's an example. That's right in purple. If you'd like to try your hand at doing a marketing engagement hypothesis, there is no right or wrong answer. Just basically make your pitch in terms of how you think this product would be engaged by the market and what the product or idea or service basically is. And just look to the examples on the right on how you would frame that sentence. Okay. So Amir, if you were to kind of write it out, and again, this is the first one, usually is just a pass. How would you frame a market engagement hypothesis for this idea that you have? And again, you could do, if this so-and-so exists at this time, then this audience will basically do this.
So given the option, I would say lots of people would prefer a video format review. Let's say short video format review.
Okay.
Over written reviews.
Okay.
I think that's it for me.
So what would people engage with in terms of your app? So if you were to, if this is the thesis behind it, what's the first part? If this thing happens, then people will do this. So if we start with if, and I can help you script out the first part of it.
Yeah, if we give people the option to review via stories, I guess. Can you help me out? I'm not sure about I understand it.
Sure, I can write it out. So if, let me see here. I'm going to take a look at the example just to make sure I have the right frame of mind.
Yeah.
So if we offer an app that allows people to record short videos of Austin nightlife and different bars.
In real time.
In real time.
Yeah.
People will, we'd say contribute their own experiences. And what else would they use it for?
And find
the right nightclub.
The right nightclub that matches their mood.
Okay. So I'm gonna do this. Take this out. So if we offer an app that allows people to record short videos of Austin nightlife in different bars in real time, actually record short. Let's put real time here. Real time videos of Austin night at different bars. So Austin nightlife. I'll put it. Maybe I'll be general and put Austin nightlife and just nobody's bars. So Austin nightlife.
Yeah.
Like clubs and bars. I'll put. People will contribute their own experiences and find the right nightclub, the right spot, or the right place.
The right place, yeah.
That matches their mood. So as a first pass, how does that sound?
Sounds about right.
Okay, let me just check and see. There's.
And one other thing is, since these are video stories, they disappear the next day. So you are reviewing only the night that you are out and recording. So the next day is a completely different video stories.
Okay, so that's good to know. So that it's an offer that allows people to record short, like time constrained, or what would you say? Like you said, like just exists for a day. So short real-time video stories. How about that?
Disappearing, I guess, what they call it. Yeah.
Stories of Austin nightlife. People will contribute their own experiences and find the right place to match their mood. Now, the question is, are you down the road, are you looking for people to purchase this app? Or are you looking for people to like, where do you find your traction? Like, how do you is your commerce through advertising? What are you thinking about?
I'm thinking about going with a few friends. Once we have a small like prototype, going down with a few friends and posting through our app every weekend, posting stories from different locations, different bars. As I told you, in Austin, we have this party area or party street called 6th Street. So it's really easy to go to 6th Street and just go from bar to bar, posting stories and showing people what's happening in these bars and clubs. Got
it. So you're talking about, Tio says, then you need a married people mode with a panic button. So what you're talking about content creation, which is good. I'm talking about if this is a year old and you're making money from this, where's the commerce coming from?
Probably advertising. Most probably advertising.
Okay. So the advertising would be embedded within there. And if they wanted to get rid of the advertising, they would pay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. So let me see if anyone else has written anything, or has it been concentrating us? Oh, we got one down here. It says, if we enable people the ability to find the right fit for their current entertainment environment preferences, then the platform will become the best opportunity for nightclubs to promote and advertise in the platform, resulting in a premium revenue stream.
I mean, I hope so.
But how does that description sound to you?
It sounds more down the line, like 2 or 3 years from now, what we are trying to achieve, not the direct app that I'm trying to create now, I guess.
But it is a good vision statement.
It's a definitely good vision statement for sure.
Okay. Okay. Any of the panelists have any comments on either of these two, since these are the two that seem to be kind of here? I'm going to move this one up in the same, oops. I'll move this up here and kind of take these out. Any comments around these market engagement and hypothesis statements? I'm assuming that no one else wants to write them up, so that was kind of remove the other ones. No? Okay. Right. So we have two, and I'm going to bring those over to take this one, and I'm going to copy it over into step 6, and the same with this one. So the next part of this is to kind of get a little bit more granular in terms of WXYZ. So XYZ is the original. The W is my edition where I talk about the when and the where. So Amir, if you're basically wanted to frame this engagement that you have in the market engagement hypothesis to WXYZ, I'm going to walk you through how this would ideally be done. So let's start with first the audience. Now we touched upon the audience a little bit in the previous step, but if you were to test this and the people that were going to be using this app, who would you say the target audience for you would be?
Millennials.
Okay. Okay. And what are they going to do with your app when they engage it?
They will post stories from venues they are having fun at, and will also look at other places for stories posted from those places, I guess.
Okay. But this is what they will do. But there's a secondary one, but this is the primary one.
I guess I prefer if they look at stories than post.
Okay. And what percentage of millennials out of like 100, what's the percentage of the number that you would say would do what you're thinking about doing?
Can we go with 60%, 70%?
So you're saying 70% out of 100, so about 70 users, or 70% of the total of millennials would post stories of venues at. Okay, when and where? Are you talking about the city of Austin?
In the beginning, the city of Austin, yes. That's
okay.
The pilot program would be in the city of Austin.
Okay. So if people who are versed in prototyping know that I'm keeping it very general before I get a little bit more specific. It's purposeful. So I wanted to kind of formulate what was in Amir's mind. Now, for the rest of the panelists, if you want to, I know that somebody put in a market engagement hypothesis here. If you want to do the same with this one, who was the author of this one? Who created this?
That was me.
Okay. Do you want to have your hand in the same way, Andy, and kind of write out the when, where of the percentage audience will do this?
Yeah,
See how that
I'll
comes
give it a
out?
shot. Sure.
Okay. And we have about 15 minutes left, so we're pretty good on time. Does anyone have any comments on what you've been experiencing so far? Any open-ended questions? No? Okay. Okay, so Amir, we're going to do a little bit of hypozooming, which is kind of getting a little bit more granular into what we've talked about here. So the way this works is that we're going to start to pare this down to one or two levels. So you said in the city of Austin, I'm wondering if you can get even smaller and get more specific. Do you want to go to a particular area where there's nightclubs and bars that you have easy access to? Someplace that's within walking distance, somewhere that you know that you can easily connect to rather than having to drive like several miles to go?
Yeah, I do live downtown, so 6th Street is 15 minutes walk from my house.
Okay. 6th Street area of bars and nightclubs, something like that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Now, when you say millennials, that involves a far wide range of people. Do you want to narrow that down to specific people that you have in mind, and think about the people that you have access to that you had mentioned before? If you can get a bit more specific about this particular audience, can you get into some demographics, or their income level, or something that that they like? Could it be like frequent TikTok user, or how would you get a bit more detailed about that?
I would say, frequent TikTok users, for sure, and young professionals.
So young professionals, and
between the ages of like 21 and 26, 25.
20. Okay,
those
so
are
26.
The ones I have access to.
That are frequent TikTok users.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And then,
or Instagram, actually. Instagram. I have access to people who use Instagram, not TikTok.
Okay. Got it. So we have these two kind of simplified down. I'm going to say instead of 70%, what I would recommend is 10, because that
Sure.
seems to be a good baseline to start with. So 10 young professionals. Now they're going to post stories of venues that they're having fun at. But I'm wondering, even before they do the action that kind of correlates to the content, if you would frame this as skin in the game, meaning what would they give you to verify beyond the content that they're interested? Would they give you a personal email address to sign up? Would they give you their phone number? Would they give you their time if you're going to demo it for them, or would they pay outright to be part of a beta? What would you feel comfortable doing, and which one of those pieces of skin in the game would you prefer to collect?
I would prefer to collect their emails, for sure.
Okay.
I don't want, there's no money involved at all in the whole idea. So it would definitely be emails.
And what do they do if they get their personal email address? What will
This
they get in
way,
exchange for that?
They will be getting on the weekend they want to go out. They will be getting stories, videos of all the nightclubs and bars on 6th Street.
So they'll give their personal email address to see updates on bars, clubs on 6th Street, right?
On 6th Street, yes.
So that's the exchange, is that they're getting content for this personal email address, so that they're going to get some updates from the.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. So yeah, this is the hypo-zoomed, or the detailed one, the one that gets a little bit more granular. It looks like Andy's working on something where he thinks that an art festival weekend event in Dallas would be a proper place. 15% of event goers would share a video update on the platform. And I think he's about to kind of do a little bit of hypo-zooming here as well to kind of get a bit more granular at things. So this is speaking to like what kind of experiment you could do. Now, while Andy's continuing to work at that and how he's kind of going there, there's another one that's happening here with nightclubs. So I'm going to let that go. I'll come back to it, Americo. I'm going to bring this over here. So I'm going to copy. Hang on, let me do this. I'm going to make this back white and copy it. I'm going to bring it over here to step number 7. And like I said, I'll come back to step 6 in a second. I just want to kind of show Amir what I'm doing here and try to highlight all of those text boxes in a very thin way. That. Okay. Oh, that's very strange. There you go. It just disappeared and folded on itself. And then we'll take the market engagement hypothesis and bring this over here as well. So Amir, just between us, while everyone's kind of still on step 6, what I've done here for you is basically put in 5 prototypes that tend to be picked often, the most often. Alden, you need to stop that, please. It's too noisy. Okay. And reading over those, and based on what you've written here, what do you think would be a prototype type that you would consider doing? And I'll go through them really fast. So the first one is a fake door, where you test the initial level of interest by creating artifacts that suggest it exists. These are like subdomains on a web page, or they're just landing spots for people to get some interest. There's that one. YouTube is where you actually create a video that kind of goes into the benefits of it. So it's literally it's more experiential and more multidimensional. And Google Glass is the example that they pulled from this in terms of what it can be. Provincial, meaning that if there's a product or service that already exists, but this is like a kind of something similar that you can ride, could this particular prototype kind of work in that same regard if you want to say like it's an extension of Yelp, or it's something you go to Yelp for first, or just say that it's something, if you're a Yelp user or a TikTok user, this is an extension, or Instagram user, this is an extension of that. MVP is the first iteration of the product. That's very, very minimal, but it basically walks through the experience if you want to show it through Figma or something else. And then Morsel is where you basically show what you're doing and then have people actually try to use it, like basically emulate it in a way, kind of like a Pinocchio. So out of those 5, and I know I didn't complete all 10 of them that are outlined in the book, is there one that kind of correlates more to the kind of prototype that you would want to do? Or would you want to do something completely different than what these 5 examples are?
It sounds like morsel. Can we elaborate more on morsel? Because from what we talked about, if I'm going to be doing this, I'm going to be collecting emails, right? And asking people to give me their email in exchange for me going on the weekend to all the bars and clubs and sending them videos from those places on the weekend.
Okay. So basically you would show the experience that you're thinking about doing with this by producing the content over a weekend. And then once you have that available, then you would say, if this is something that interests you, send me your email address and you'll get updates in real time as this happens in the nightclub. Okay. So that's kind of what you're thinking with this one. All right.
Yes.
So are you in the mural right now?
I am, yeah. I'm following you.
Okay. Why don't you choose so you're going to do morsel here. What I'd like you to do is think about how you would build this prototype out in terms of what would you need to do to construct it in your own fashion, based on your skill set, based on your access to resources. How would you create this particular prototype that you're thinking about so that you can actually test it? And kind of go through the steps in terms of like how you think it should be. There's 7 here, but it can be less or more if you want. But this is a way of kind of first exploring how you could potentially go about it. If you're talking about this experiment up here.
So the idea here is that I need some emails first and see if people are interested. So either a landing page or asking some people from my network to give me their emails if they're interested in the idea. So I would explain the idea to them and ask them to send me their emails. But maybe a landing page would be better.
Yeah. I mean, it's up to you. It's what I'm encouraging you to do is just kind of explore the space in this kind of framework where you're going from top to bottom, but write out in your mind at a high level the steps you would personally take to kind of get to this point where people are giving you your personal email addresses to see updates. So that may involve you going to get the actual content. It may involve you setting up a landing page that shows what this is like. If you're going to do a morsel, then that could be where it is. But if you're talking about a fake door, you want to change this out, then fake doors require like setting up the landing page, hooking up analytics, potentially doing a form if you're going to collect the email. But in your mind, what would be those steps that you would start from top to bottom to make that happen? That's kind of where I'm kind of going. And while you do that first exploration, I was going to go back to step 6 and see what people are doing, and if there's been any updates in that regard. So take your time. You only have 3 minutes. No, I'm kidding. The bottom of the hour. But just it's your first. Give it your first shot, and we'll see where it goes with things. If I come back to Andy's over here, he says that he's basically the art festival weekend in Dallas stays the same. And we're kind of talking about hypo-zooming. And then he actually increased it to 30 people at the 15%. And Andy, you said parents of children ages 8 to 14 that are seeking spaces that are suitable for their family to attend. So you actually reframed this engagement that doesn't involve nightclubs or bars, but more around whether or not parents would feel safe for certain places to go for their children to attend, and that the email address would provide them to learn more. So you've reframed it in a different fashion.
Hopefully that was okay, but it sort of felt like it was still in that vein of aligning someone's preference with what's available out there in their immediate area.
I mean, the thing is about the app is that it can be used for anything you want, basically, so it doesn't matter. That's a great idea.
So Americo wrote, in Night Out app offers user-generated video stories of Austin nightclubs. People would just subscribe it and use it to select the spot of their night during a month and share their experiences live. So kind of like reserving some time. So he started out the nightclub area of Austin, then refined it to 10 nightclubs. And then he said in YouTube. So he basically went all the way to video. He went from 10 out of 100 to 100 to 2%. And then millennials, clients, Americo, are these 3 different, are these 3 different XYZ hypotheses? Is that what you wrote here?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're not, it's not hyper-zooming. It's just different engagements based on that, like is this second one supposed to be hypo-zooming, and then this one is like a completely different engagement model down here on this third row?
Yeah, different models of measuring that engage. Like in YouTube, I will be closer to those who are more techie driven. In the Austin clubs, if I check with clients, real clients, if they are willing to follow my solution, I will expose them to a QR code, and if they want, they can scan it and follow my solution. And that's it. Different models of engagement.
No, I get you. I just want to clarify before, because I was in a hypo-zooming mode before with the mirrors and Andy, so I just want to make sure I was following you. But that's what it seemed like.
Yep.
Okay, so it looks like while Amir's doing his, there's an imposter one where you create an account on Instagram, you go out to a nightclub and start recording. I think, that Amir, you're kind of writing that out. So while Amir and America are writing this, since we're at time, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit to the entire spectrum of the mural that we've been working on. And
I guess what I'm working on is really the imposter. He's right. Yeah. It's the imposter, right? Yeah.
Okay. What I was going to ask is, for people that are on the call from the panelist side, what did you think of this particular session, since we're at time? Do you have any immediate feedback? This was a different approach than yesterday, where before we had everyone participating, but this was now more of a interview style kind of walkthrough of bringing an idea towards a prototyping engagement. What did you think of this approach in terms of this format?
I like it. I think it was the conversational aspect laced with the activity was I think very useful and effective.
Okay. Stefania, what are your thoughts?
I loved it.
Okay.
It's really great.
And I'm sorry, I missed some comments. I think it's Andreas said I think it's more detailed. Luke had posted, what are legal issues that people are shown on videos shown, or that are seen on videos shown, in terms of getting permission to record them?
That's an EU regulation where you can't really take pictures of strangers without their permission. So that's something to address if we decide to expand to the EU. But in the US, there's no such law. You can take photos and videos of strangers without their permission, no problem.
Just curious, if we did this in future months for the community of practice, where if we had somebody with an idea for a startup or for a business or something like that, would this kind of format work for someone else, or maybe a couple of people that wanted to do it at the same time? So Amir, it would be like somebody different, like say if Americo had an idea, or if Verena had her own, and kind of walking through this. This could be where we kind of approach this, but you have a group of people that have a different perspective than the person who has the idea. And then this can be like a jump start for people to get a map going, and then it's on their own merit, whether or not it goes in a certain direction. How does that sound to the panelists, if that was like a future event where we walk people through this process to really get something going?
Robert,
personally, sorry, go ahead, Carla. Go ahead.
Sorry, okay. I wanted to add to what I started to write, and then I realized I could just say this easier. Because last night we were participating and you were giving content and there was a challenge, and it was a lot more, and it stayed a little bit superficial because we had to go through and there were so many of us and so on. And the way that you did it tonight, I think, was more effective. We had a very clear challenge from the beginning. We could find out more about the background. We could do this kind of interview. There was more discussion, and then go into the process. It seemed also a little bit more organic and just a better learning experience. I mean, I liked last night, and I think tonight was even better. So I like it this way. So that was my feedback. Thank you.
And as someone who came with an idea, I liked it because people were poking holes in the idea and the concept, and that is very beneficial for me while I'm building the product. And even thinking of different use cases that I didn't even think about.
Yeah, that was part of the intent, is to get that perspective from other people. Yeah.
Yeah.
I almost wonder that, and we spent so this is 90 minutes, and I spent the first 20 minutes, 25 minutes over the introduction of different examples as kind of like a setup for what we're doing here. But this could easily be just 60 minutes, or where we go through the same motion where people have this idea. Maybe we have two candidates, and then the notion is that we do this kind of exploration of the pretotype and the hypothesis in that same fashion. So it would just be a matter of yeah, I can see it happening. It would have to be framed properly. Okay. All right. Any other feedback from the panelists? Anyone that's been watching it all on YouTube or Zoom? Any other comments you'd like to make about what you experienced today? I know this will be continuing on into next week, where we'll be doing actual walkthroughs of particular apps. I think we're going to be doing Klaxoon and Notion, Figma, and Meet Butter. And that schedule should be coming up. If it's not known by the community, it'll be coming up soon. But I invite anybody that's watching this in the future or that's here in the session to join those if you have an interest with that. We will be doing this sort of thing again, probably in 2 weeks. We'll reframe the pretotyping experimentation. I think I'll invite someone else who has an idea. And we'll, like Carla's saying, we'll walk through this so that it feels more purposeful, and that we're actually talking about something that someone has some skin in the game from a startup inventor's perspective. Okay. Right. So I'll stop the share on my end. And like we always do, I think we're going to do a group shot, but I think I already have an idea in mind. Amir, when he was thinking, was kind of going like this. So I think we all kind of should act like we're stroking our imaginary beards, like we're thinking. Stefania, if you want to, you can do like this if you want the option. It's totally up to you. But if you like to have the fake chin, you can also do that as well. So if you're on camera, you want to be on camera, you ready? I think Andy was here, but he's gone. I don't see him. Yeah, okay. Are you ready? We'll do the thin chin. 1 and a 2 and 3. All right. Thank you all for coming and give your perspective. I really enjoyed the session. Hopefully it was a good use of your time. For those of you on the other side of the pond in India and everybody else, thank you so much for staying up and watching this. We'll be doing it again in 2 weeks. But Amir, hopefully this has been helpful, and we've been giving you a lot of perspective on things.
Yeah, can I get a PDF of this?
Yeah, you'll get the link to the Mural. So yeah, you can export PDFs directly from Mural, and we should be good. Thanks everyone on YouTube and for Zoom for checking in. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. And remember, wash your hands, keep your distance, wear your mask, stay healthy and safe. And we'll speak to you hopefully next week. Okay.
Thank
Bye,
you,
everybody.
Robert.
Thanks a lot.
Bye. Thanks a lot. Have a nice weekend.